Yo, what's going on, boys? How you guys doing today? Welcome back to another YouTube video. In today's video, we're going to be going over a build for the Grandmaster Nightfalls, and this right here has to be probably one of the best Grandmaster builds for this season. And the thing that makes it great is that you never really have to change anything for any of the Grandmasters that you run into. This can deal with every champion, all three champions all at once. So if you want to run this build for any GM, it'll do pretty well in it. It can deal with all the champions. It has a lot of survivability with invisibility and a bunch of damage resistance. So if you guys start looking for a good build for those Grandmasters, then you definitely don't want to miss this one. Now the main two things that you're going to need for this build are going to be the buried bloodline and either an Orpheus rig or a class item with the Spirit of Galanor. Which, you know, now that Sir can bring the class items, should be a little bit easier to get. But as long as you have those two things, this build is going to work, and it's going to be pretty damn great. So let's actually start by talking about the weapons that we're running in this build, especially since we already mentioned the buried bloodline. So let's get into it. So our main weapon is going to be the buried bloodline, and this thing is amazing. It has been pretty much amazing since it came out, but this season specifically, it can allow this weapon to do a ton of different things. It has a ton of ammo, it has a lot of damage, it has a lot of survivability with Devour, it can apply weaken, it can give you overshields, it can stun champions. There's nothing that this weapon cannot do. It does so much this season. If you still haven't gotten the buried bloodline, then you definitely gotta get in there and get this thing. This thing is just gonna be amazing, and it's also gonna be the main way that we're gonna be stopping those unstoppables. But it's also gonna be like the main weapon that we're gonna be using most of the time. It's just so hard not to use this weapon with all the damage that it does and all the ammo that you also have on this weapon. And after we get a couple kills with this weapon, we're gonna proc the power, increasing our survivability, and also making it so every shot on this weapon will weaken targets, which is gonna give us overshields whenever we kill the weakened target, and this is gonna make us go invisible. So that's why this is gonna be the main weapon of the build. It does so much. The only downside I can see of this weapon is that it's a bit of a hard weapon to get, especially if RNG is not on your side. You know, you do gotta grind the boss pretty much every week to get this weapon. And that it doesn't stun multiple champions at once. You will stop the unstoppables, but that's about it. But that's also why we have our other weapons. And speaking about those other weapons, let's take a look at the first one. Now for our kinetic weapon, we're gonna be using the pulse rifle. And the two main pulse rifles I'm gonna recommend are either gonna be the Battle Scar or the Blast Furnace. They're both gonna be pretty similar, and the main thing that you're gonna be looking for on them is gonna be those kinetic tremors. If you can get kinetic tremors on it, it's gonna be a pretty good weapon. Kinetic tremors are gonna add a little bit extra damage, and it's also gonna make breaking those barrier shields a little faster, which is the main point of the pulse rifle. We're not really gonna use the pulse rifle too much, except for breaking those barrier shields. So this is pretty much like our anti-barrier weapon, and that's all that we're really going to be doing with the weapon. Most of the time we're going to be using the buried bloodline, so this is really just going to be for those barriers. But again, go with the Blast Furnace or with the Battle Scar, whichever you like a little more. I think they're both pretty easy to get, especially since the Battle Scar could just straight up be bought from Banshee. So I'm sure you'll be able to get a good one before you even know it. Now for a heavy weapon, this is going to be the slot that has the most flexibility, since it doesn't really have to be any certain type of weapon. But I will recommend that you go with a void weapon so you can get the most out of that buried bloodline weaken. So you could go with a rocket, the Fate Keeper is a pretty good one, or you could go with a machine gun, something like the Hammerhead will also work. But like I said, as long as it's a void weapon, everything can really work. A linear, rocket launcher, a sword even, as long as it's void, you'll have a pretty good time. And our heavy weapon also doesn't do any champion stopping or breaking, so it can really be whatever you want. Now for the super, we're gonna go with the Shadow Shot. The Shadow Shot is amazing in endgame content, especially in stuff like Grandmasters. You can pretty much just shut down entire waves of enemies with the Shadow Shot. And with our boots or its other class item, we're gonna be getting like half of the energy back, meaning that we're gonna be able to spam our Shadow Shot even more. So it's gonna be fantastic. If you also have the class item, you could also possibly use the Silencing Squall. That could also work pretty well. Also, something that people sometimes forget is that the Shadow Shot can also actually stun Overload champions. So you can even stun champions with it. Now for our grenade armor melee, we're going to be using the Dust Field plus the Withering Blade combo. And it's because this is going to be like the main ways that we're going to be dealing with those overload champions. Our Withering Blades are going to be able to stun overloads, and our Dust Field is also once again going to be able to stun overloads. These are not going to be like the only ways we're going to have to stun overloads, but they're going to be our main ways, especially the Withering Blade. You could also use Withering Blade into a champion and then hit them with a Dust Field, so they just stay not only frozen but also stunned. And that pretty much makes it so that champion is marked for death. They're never going to get out of that Dust Field. They're pretty much just going to get stunned over and over again. So this is going to be the main way that we're going to stun those overloads. And they're also going to be building our Darkness Transcendence meter so we can transcend. Now for the aspects, we're going to be running Ascension plus the Stylus Executioner. With Stylus Executioner, it's going to let us go invisible whenever we defeat something that's affected by an elemental debuff. That's going to be if they're slowed, if they're jolted, and also since our sidearm is going to be able to apply weaken, basically every time that we kill a weakened target, we're also going to be going invisible. So we're actually going to be able to go invisible a lot with this build, just kind of increasing our survivability. Now Ascension is going to help us with a couple of different things. It's going to let us jolt targets, which is another way to stun some of those overload champions. And it's also going to amplify us every time we activate it, meaning that we can take advantage of that Galvanic Armor mod and get 30% damage resistance as long as we're amplified. And with this build, we're always going to be amplified, meaning that we're always going to have that 30% damage reduction. So we have that 30% damage reduction at all time, and if things get a little too hectic, we can go invisible with Stylus Executioner. So we have a lot, I do really mean a lot, of survivability on this build. And you should always pretty much have your Ascension ready before your Amplify even runs out. Now moving on to the Fragments, the first one we have is the Facet of Hope. Whenever we have a light buff, like Amplify, Cure, Radiant, our class ability is going to recharge more quickly. And this is pretty much what allows us to spam our class ability and just essentially be amplified all the time. You definitely want Facet of Hope, or just make it so you are always amplified. After that, we're going to have the Facet of Dawn. Whenever we hit something with our power melee, it will make us Radiant. This is just going to be good. This is going to give us some extra damage on all our weapons. And we're going to be able to proc it quite often since our melee is up really quickly. Next up, we're going to have Facet of Balance, which is going to give us back Grenade or melee energy depending on our damage type that we're defeating targets with. If we're defeating them with light damage, we're going to get melee energy, and if we're defeating them with darkness damage, we're going to get grenade energy. Most of our weapons are going to be light, so that's going to give us more melee energy, meaning that we can spam our melee a lot more. So that's why the Facet of Dawn is going to be up pretty often. So it's just another way to get back our abilities faster, mostly our melee. After that, we're going to have Facet of Protection. This one's just going to be really good for GMs. Whenever we're surrounded, we are more resistant to incoming damage. It's 15% at base, and whenever we activate our Transcendence, it's going to be 25%. It's just so we can take a little bit extra damage, especially in something like the GM, where if you're not careful, you can be dead really quickly. So this just makes it so we can survive a couple of other things that we wouldn't survive otherwise. And the last one we're going to have is going to be the Facet of Solitude. Landing rapid precision hits will sever the target. And Severing is a big debuff. Severing is an amazing debuff, especially when you're fighting something like champions, since it lowers their damage. So they're just going to be not as dangerous to you or your teammates. And with this Fragment, it's also a very easy buff to apply. All you gotta do is hit a couple of precision hits, and then they're gonna be doing less damage. You can pretty much proc this on every single champion or big enemy you run into, so it's always going to be affecting their damage and making them a little less dangerous. Now for our exotic piece of armor, we have the Orpheus Rigs. It lets us spam our super, and also it gives us back some ability energy on top of giving us back our super. Orpheus are going to be amazing. They're like an endgame staple, so you definitely want to run them with this build. And you can also get the same effect from the class item with the Spirit of Galanor. I don't think it gives you the same super energy back as consistently, but it does have the potential to give you like half your super back. And if you run this with something like Silence and Squall, then it pretty much gives you 50% of the super back every single time. I think that's a big advantage of the Spirit of Galanor on the cloak, that you can run it with other supers, not just with Tether. And also you get a whole nother exotic class perk on the cloak as well. So now let's take a look at the mods that we're running here, and we're gonna go through these pretty quickly because there's nothing really exciting about it. But for the helmet, we have Heavy Ammo Finder, Heavy Ammo Scout, Radiant Light. Since we're gonna be popping our super a lot, might as well give our allies some armor charge. And this is just so we can get topped off on some of that heavy ammo. Now for our gauntlets, we're gonna have Momentum Transfer, Impact Induction, and Harmonic Loader. Harmonic Loader is going to affect both our heavy weapon and our sidearm, so we got to get the most out of Harmonic Loader. And this is just so we can get back our abilities back faster, our grenade, and also our melee. For our chest piece, we're mostly just going to go with the classic resistance mods, and these ones are really going to change depending on the GM. So pretty much just look at the threat and what pretty much you run into in the GM to really change these around. So this one's going to be all up to you. For our boots, we're going to have Recuperation, Absolution, and then Void Scavenger, so we can get more ammo, so we can heal with the orbs, and so the orbs can also reduce our ability cooldowns, all of them. And lastly, for our class item, we're going to have Utility Kickstart, and Power Finish, and Proximity Ward, so we can be safe whenever we go for a finisher, and also so we can use those armor charges with our Utility Kickstart. Utility Kickstart is like one of the few mods that actually does work with Ascendance, so that's the reason we have it on. Now for the artifact, these are the ones that you want to run. You want to run Shield Crush, Expanding the Abyss, since we're going to be weakening things quite a lot with our sidearm. Boy Hegemony, which is going to give us over shields whenever we defeat something that's weakened. Galvanic Armor for that damage reduction whenever we're amplified. Counter Energy, so we can get back some energy whenever we stun a champion. And lastly, Press the Advantage, so we can get that handling and reload speed whenever we break a shield. So that's pretty much what you're going to go for on your artifact, and all of these are just going to make the build better. And with that, that's going to be the end of the build. This is pretty much all that you want, and you're going to be able to take this thing into any GM that you want and have a pretty good time. Now if you guys want to try this build, like always, there will be a dim link in the description in case you want to try it, and after you try it, make sure you guys come back and just tell me what you guys thought of the build, and also if you yourself make some changes to the build to try to improve it. What I really love about this build is that it's a build that you can just slap on and turn off your brain and pretty much just go through any GM that you really want to, since you could pretty much deal with everything. I really think that that's like the main advantage of this build, just that you never really have to change builds. If you want to just have one Grandmaster build that you know and love, then this can pretty much be that build if you really want to. I enjoy changing, my build pretty much every Grandmaster, but if I wanted to run this in any of them, I probably could. But yeah, with that, we're gonna end today's video. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Leave a like if you did, dislike if you didn't, subscribe to the channel in case you guys haven't already. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about the build, and also how you guys have been feeling about the GMs. The next 3, or like the last 3, should be opening up this week actually. So once again, we're gonna have some builds more specifically catered to the specific GMs, and hopefully you guys will enjoy them. Anyways, appreciate everyone stopping by. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care everyone, have a good rest of your day. Peace.